Welcome back to the PI Files, where we dig into real cases, real people, and the role of private investigators in uncovering the truth. I'm your host, Eric Peterson. I'm a licensed private investigator here in California. Today on the PI Files, we're talking about what really happens when travel goes wrong. Missed flights, scams, kidnappings, political unrest, and the difference between being stuck and getting out. Because while most people think booking travel is about convenience, the truth is it's about smart, safe travel. I'm joined by travel expert Charlie Forsgren, and we're about to talk about all things travel. Well, welcome, Charlie. Thank you very much for being here.
You bet. Thank you.
So I wanted to get into, how did you get into this field? How did you get into the travel industry?
I've always been the guy that created the travel plans for my family. I've always enjoyed it. It appeals to the logistic part of my personality. I've done travel for comedians. I've done travel for TV production. I worked in TV production for a while, but just really, really liked it. And so I was looking for something to do, something to kind of do for a living. And I came across being a travel agent, and I thought, yeah, I love that. I got super excited about it. I kind of stumbled across it late at one night. I hadn't thought about it being a business, and I found cruise planners, and I just got really excited about it. Yeah, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my time than to help people finding great travel and vacations and experiences and just kind of living in that world. And so I jumped feet first into it. So.
In the past, there would be travel agencies, it'd be brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So how has that changed? And then also, what's the difference between just somebody going online themselves, because there's so many options these days, and then going with you?
Yeah, well, there's still some brick and mortar around, but that's generally not the way people do their lives anymore. Everybody's so busy, and especially during the day when brick and mortar places are open. And by the time you get thinking about your travel, you're at home and you're on the computer and that kind of stuff. And I always say the computer's for the internet's for looking, and I'm for booking. And there's a lot of choices out there. There's a lot of different cruise lines, and then once you decide on the cruise line, for example, then there's all the different room categories. Do you want to be at the front of the boat, in the middle of the boat, in the middle of the ship? Do you want to be at the top or lower down? When do you want to go? Is it hurricane season there? Is it, or is it just the rainy season, or is it super hot, or those kinds of things? And so we have a process where I qualify the client, the person, not like qualifying for a loan or anything. We just sit down and we talk about how do you like to travel? What is important to you? Are you a foodie, or do you want quality family time, or do you want to just lounge on the beach, or do you want to be going all the time? Those kinds of things. So I find out what's important to the client and help to put them in the right vacation. And so you don't want somebody that wants a Disney vacation to be going on Virgin, because they're two very different products, right? And they're both great, but they're very different. And so that's kind of where talking with a travel advisor can help. And then also, I'm aware of, world situations. I'm aware of places that you may or may not want to go. Or if you're thinking about, I want to go to this place, then okay, great. These are some ways we can do that for you. That makes sense, right? And then there's also a bunch of little things along the way, right? How are you getting to the airport? How are you getting from the airport to your hotel? How are you getting back? All those things. Are you going to do trips? Do you want to do a cooking class while you're there? What is it that you want to do? And I can help make that whole package for you.
Is there anything people misunderstand about travel agents?
I think people are worried that they're going to cost a lot. That it's a service. Well, it's like, if I do it, I book it for myself. I may not get all those services that you offer, but I don't have to pay. But the reality is that I work on commission, right? And so I get paid by the vendors. And it's easy enough for you to check the prices, right? If I quote you something and you go online and you're like, well, this is cheaper, I can look at it and I can say, well, all right, so the price you're looking at is for a guarantee room, which means you don't get to pick where you're going, or whatever the difference is, right? We can talk about that. And then also we provide kind of concierge level service, right? And so those are the things. And then I think that's the biggest misconception, is that it's going to cost a fortune or that it's going to be difficult. And a good travel agent is not maybe going to save you money and make your life easier. You know, if you have a problem and you booked it yourself, you have to call and sit on hold and whatever. And if you book with me or a travel agent, a travel advisor, you call us and we help sort it out. And we have the connections with the different vendors to help smooth that out.
What are the biggest mistakes people make when they book travel themselves?
I think is probably just either booking themselves into the wrong situation, whether that's different or like the wrong category, or booking themselves on the wrong vacation. Right? They end up getting there and they're like, "Oh, this wasn't what I wanted at all." You know, the camera is very good at making everything look wonderful, right? And that's not always the case, and so. I think just that's the biggest thing. There's pressure. You know, people will sometimes succumb to that, and they'll book too quickly, and they won't have figured out exactly what they want to do, or they won't have thought about. Yes, if you book that, you won't be able to do this kind of a thing. So,
with the rise of like TikTok, Instagram, like stories, and things like that, I've noticed that certain places are getting super crowded. I heard that.
Yeah.
You know, with Japan and certain areas, and it's interesting. I mean, those videos are good and some of them educational, but I think people don't realize that some of that impact, because it seems, and I think you have that inside track to determine, okay, well, this is a good time to go or not a good time to go,
right?
Because I heard travelers are getting discouraged because of, and then maybe even like certain businesses, like, hey, this is too much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a problem. Over tourism is definitely a concern. And so sometimes it's just what you have to do if you really want to go somewhere, right? But TikTok and Instagram and all that is wonderful because it helps discover places, but it also feels like, it in some ways, if you had discovered it beforehand, it almost feels like it gets ruined for you because the secret's out, So I think that traveling in the shoulder season is really great. You can a lot of the places are still open that you want to see. They still have tourist hours and that kind of stuff, but it's not as crowded. It may be less expensive. If you travel in the off season, that's good if you can, but a lot of people can't because of children and things like that. But also there's reduced hours and those kinds of things. So
you mentioned to me you do the 24/7 like support at times, and what does that actually look like in real life, in real situations?
Well, I'm always available. So, it's a big world and people are traveling at all different types, different times and that kind of stuff. And so if my phone rings, I'm answering it, right?
So you're not, no do not disturb for you.
No, do not disturb for me. No. So, and it's okay. So I'm used to that. Like I said, I've always been the guy on call no matter what I've done. And so that's nothing new for me. And it's what I offer to my clients is the reason they come to me, right? And is because from the minute you call me to the minute you get home, I'm there for you. And so, there's going to be certain circumstances, like if you have insurance and you're having an issue, we're going to get the insurance company involved almost immediately. That's how I solve that, right? I'm not going to like fly there and help you, that kind of stuff, but I will be your resource to help you get in touch with who you need to get in touch with.
I think it's so crucial, especially traveling in other countries.
Yeah.
And I can attest to it. You're extremely, extremely responsive, and there's that time change. There's so much, and that's something you don't get with other businesses, or that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I had a client recently that they were going to, even in the U.S., they were flying to Florida. They're on their way to the airport, and they got an email, your flight's been canceled. And it's like, well, if you're booked with me, like they called me.
Yeah.
I jumped on my computer. I was like, all right, here's 3 flights that'll get you there today. This is the least expensive, most direct one. If I were you, go there and book that right there, right now. And that's what they did. And they were able to, they didn't lose a day of their vacation. Otherwise the flight that they were booked on, they wanted to rebook them for the next day. and they were going on a cruise and they were doing other things, and it's 24 hours of your vacation lost, and plus you're already at the airport.
Yeah. So you were able to adjust them?
I was able to adjust them and help them out, and so that was a good result. So
are there any other examples, like major issues that you've handled?
I had a client that fell and broke her knee on a cruise, and so she was able to give me a call, and I was able to help her get the help she needed to get relocated, get brought back home, and dealt with the cruise line and the excursions that she had lined up for the rest of her trip and things like that. So that's an example of an unfortunate incident, but it minimized the impact. She wasn't able to continue the trip, but she felt taken care of, and we got her home, and she was okay after that.
I think that production sounds like that production experience,
yeah,
and your ability to solve those problems and help out, people in the entertainment industries definitely have served you.
Yes,
because not everybody has that perspective that you
right. I look at things two different ways. I have a plan, but then I also have contingencies, so I know how to think quickly and solve problems and not get bogged down with, what can we do? I look at things very logically and help people to solve, because most of the time everything's just fine, right? Yeah. But when something goes wrong, you want somebody that can help you clearly find the best path through.
Speaking of best path, so TSA pre-check, clear, global entry. I do have TSA pre-check. I've had global entry. Do you recommend all three? Just one? What do you recommend?
Well, if you travel a lot outside the country, then global entry is great. If you're traveling mostly in the U.S., TSA pre-check is wonderful. It'll change your life. So
I want, and recently so you set up a security trip that I had to take, and and I appreciate it. I was bogged down. I had so much going on, and I asked you if you did it. You did it so quickly, and it was awesome. And me being the prima donna, I said, hey, my TSA pre-check isn't, and it was at John Wayne Airport, which is pretty easy to get through.
Yeah.
And turns out randomly they may not have you do that. They may throw you through the line.
It's one of the security devices so they don't, TSA pre-check, you're good, you're cleared, but every once in a while they will flag you for the old-fashioned security inspection, and it doesn't happen very often. But I think you got nailed both ways on that trip.
No,
right?
I think you're right. And then, but then when I traveled after that, it was fine. Southwest,
yeah, and you probably will be able to go for a while without it happening, but it does happen every once in a while. But it definitely helps, especially that's the most stressful time, I think, for most people, is going in and out of the airport, right? Yeah. Once you're in your hotel or resort or on your cruise ship, then you can relax. But
and that's been on the news as recent as of today, I believe. Speaking of TSA, so because they're not getting paid, maybe I think 10% of the workforce isn't showing up.
Yeah.
And there's a long wait, long lines, things like that. So in that instance, are you advising your clients? Are you getting those updates and things like that in terms of the different airports they're flying out of? And
right now everything is still open. They are talking about potentially having to close some of the smaller airports if this isn't resolved. But yes, there are a couple of ways. A lot of airports have a online that you can check and see how long the expected wait times are. Yeah. If you're at an impacted airport, you definitely want to get there early, because those planes will take off without you. And so some of these airports are 5-hour waits right now. So yeah, it's definitely an inconvenience, but you there's not any real way around it. If that's what the wait is, then that's what you just have to plan ahead. And so I would notify, when I have clients traveling right now, I'll let them know. I'll say, hey, just plan on getting there a little bit earlier than you normally would, and once you get through, find a restaurant or whatever and relax and have a meal and just kind of be glad that you're through security.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Hopefully it gets resolved.
yeah.
With respect to like perks, upgrades, access, relationships with other agencies and people, what are your take on that? I mean, because if they go with you, are they going to have access to things that they wouldn't normally have?
Yeah, well, we have, as part of Cruise Planners, we have volume discounts. Oftentimes, our corporate office goes in and pulls group space on trips early, as soon as they're released, and so they lock in pricing, and they have benefits like onboard credit or discounts, those kinds of things that will allow that. If you're booking with points, I can do that. I can handle those kinds of things. A lot of times the airlines, lots of people have airline points, and so we book with those airline points for the flights. So,
do you have opinion on the best credit card point system, hotels, airlines? Do you have, or are they all, a lot of them just kind of the same?
I think it's really who you use the most. I have American Express with Hilton. And then I have like Delta and Southwest, and then I have like a generic Capital One, not generic, but that I can use for international flights and things like that. So if you're at a hub city, if you're in Salt Lake City or Atlanta, and those are Delta hubs, and you're almost flying all the time on Delta, then you probably want to look at Delta. If you're at Chicago or San Francisco, I think, are both United.
Yep.
And so they, then maybe you want to think about United, or if you're usually doing long haul flights, then maybe it's the Capital One that has good benefits for travel to Europe and things like that. The other thing, a lot of the card companies have been giving lounge access, but that's going away to some extent because so many people have the points. It's getting really hard to get into the lounges, and so it's getting more and more restrictive. So if the lounge access is important to you, just double check and make sure that the card that you're looking for has that still.
The lounges can be good, but I think a couple times, I think they'll give like one pass or two passes a year or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and then like if you're at American or if you're flying out of Delta all the time or whatever, they'll also have lounges available to you. And once you get to a certain status level, you can get into those and things like that. So
I think my brother hit like 1 million, the 1,000,000 mile thing. Yeah, they have a little parade for you and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw somebody online like messing with the points where, hey, here's how to stay at this private resort in whatever place. Is that legit, or is that switching points around?
There's a guy called the Points Guy, and he talks about how to maximize the points and things like that. And you can do it. You can get it as involved as you want, or take it as casually as you want. Right? If you really want to maximize, then you got to kind of hunt those deals. And somebody like the Points Guy can help you understand how to do that.
Yeah.
If you're just, looking to, like we save up our points for Hilton, and, we usually take a week of a trip every year on points, those kinds of things. But I don't really necessarily hunt and transfer and those kinds of things. So
what are the most dangerous situations travelers don't think about?
I think people, and I'm guilty of it, when you go on vacation, you think, I'm on vacation, nothing bad can happen. You kind of let your guard down, and you think of the place as just being a vacation wonderland for you, and so just in general letting down the guard, not being aware, not thinking about the local conditions where your everyday office job. You may not think twice about your nice watch or a nice necklace or something like that, but in certain situations, that's going to flag for somebody and make you a potential target. And so just being aware of your surroundings, and a lot of times you get somewhere, it's a different culture, and there's hustle and bustle and different language, and it can be overwhelming at first. And if you're stacked up with all your money and all your credit cards and you're wandering around and you don't know exactly where you're going and you're looking at a map and you're like, the 10 best things to do, you got your guidebook and those, all those things that are beneficial, but not when you're wandering around on the street. So,
I mean, I'm sure you recommend getting some of the local currency, but you probably recommend charging everything as well?
yeah, I do. That ties back to the credit cards also. You can get, if you're going to be traveling internationally, find a card that doesn't have the international fees on it. And then, you get the best conversion rates, and it's easy. Yeah. And you don't, if you happen to lose your card, you cancel it, right? And you take more than one card, have an emergency card. You don't, and leave a card in the safe or somewhere secure so that you have something in case your wallet gets lost or stolen. And then, I would have a little bit of money for, tips and, if you find something in a street vendor or something like that you want to buy in the local currency. But, and when you get the local currency, pull it from an ATM, make sure that you're using a secure ATM, an ATM in a secure place, right? Mm-hmm. And don't be like counting all your money in the lobby of the hotel or anything like that. Take it, put it in your pocket, and, make it as nonchalant as possible.
Are you aware of any common scams like targeting American tourists or anything like that?
Yeah, I think a big one is people walking up to you and trying to get you to take something. Whether it be a necklace, a friendship bracelet, something like that. And, people, I think in general, people are just conditioned to be polite. And so they take it out of politeness. And then you find yourself in a situation where they're demanding money for it, or they're distracting you while somebody's lifting your wallet. So in general, if somebody approaches you, polite but firm, no, I'm not interested, and keep moving. And especially like if you find yourself surrounded by, even unfortunately, children are used sometimes, and so if you find yourself surrounded by a group of children, you need to get out of that situation, and it's not a panic situation, but it is a I gotta move, I gotta get away from this situation, so.
I forgot where I was, but it was a whole huge bracelet thing, but they were using children to put bracelets, on both wrists. And so I just have to walk through like this. Come on, guys, we're walking. So.
Yeah. And I think just that's where the awareness comes in, especially like around big tourist attractions. Yeah. If somebody's playing the 3-card game, you're not going to beat it, so don't do it. Right? Even if you think, I don't mind losing, I'm just going to do it. So I say, no, don't do it. Yeah. It's a bad idea. Don't put yourself in that situation, and be aware. And, if you're in a group, make sure your group stays together, and so you can kind of look out for each other as well. So, is there anything else that you think people should never do in a foreign country? I mean, is there anything else that comes to mind? You mentioned a lot already. I think that you never want to do anything that you wouldn't do at home. For one, you don't want to go. You want to be responsible when you're drinking. If you're going out on the town, which is part of being on a vacation, you don't want to. You probably don't want to drink to excess. You don't want to go exploring in a back alley, a bar in a back alley or something like that, right? And you don't want to leave your drinks unattended. Those kinds of things that you want to use trusted transportation to and from. You want to use Uber or, some sort of ride share. You don't want to be like, hey, buddy, I can give you a ride back to your hotel. That's not what you want to do. And so I think just using that kind of sense of staying out of any kind of bad situation is a good idea. Yep. So that's not necessarily what not to do. That's what to do, I guess. Yeah. So, with respect to your vendors and your contacts in other parts of the world, how are you vetting them? Well, we are with cruise planners. They get set up through the corporation, and we only use vendors that have passed their vetting process. And so we're going to use one of the ways to travel safely is like through a tour company, right? Through Globus or Adventures by Disney or CIE Tours or something like that that are reputable. They have been around some of them have been around for 120 years offering tours and things like that. And so they go to the places, they know where to go and where not to go and those kinds of things. And so we don't use Tours by Joe or whatever. If I book on a excursion, I might use Viator, but they have vetted the tour providers there as well. And so that's an important part of traveling safely.
Do you also have individual drivers? In other words, maybe more of a less crowded company, or
Yes.
where it's just, hey, I want a driver to take me here, but just us. Or
Yes, absolutely. The more exclusive it is, the more expensive it will be. But we definitely can do. When my family went to Paris recently, I got drive private cars for us so that I don't mind. I like taking the metro. I do, but going from the airport to the hotel, metro with luggage is not fun. And walking 5 blocks even with your luggage, it's a way of making yourself a target, but it's also just a pain. Yeah. So it was super easy. We had a greeter at the luggage claim, and he walked us right out to his car and drove us there. And we do the same thing with kind of with tours and things like that. So yes.
If I dropped you in a foreign country, no phone, no wallet, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'll call Bear Grylls. Isn't that his name?
Yeah.
I think that if I would go probably to a big hotel, to start with. Like if I could find a Hilton or a Marriott or someplace like that, I would go there, and then from there I would contact the U.S. Embassy or probably the U.S. Embassy, and then the Department of State, and get help from there. Also, to benefit that, I mean, I don't have a phone, but in this case, I would have already taken digital copies of my passport, my driver's license, that kind of stuff, and it would be stored. So I'll, in my email or whatever. Yeah. So I would just need to get to a computer, which all the hotels are going to have business centers. Obviously, that's not necessarily ideal, but if you got to get out somehow, right? And so you can print those up. Those will help to get you replacement documents.
Would you have those hard copies also? If you, do you take those?
Yeah. I generally also will, because I will, unless some places may require you to carry a passport, but for most places, you just have to carry some sort of identification. So I use my driver's license as that, but I will have a paper copy of my passport as well. So that in case it goes to the next level, I have that, right? Yeah. And then they absolutely needed the passport, then we could go back to the hotel and open the safe and get into the passport kind of a thing. So
the big question a lot of people are asking lately is, how safe is Mexico for travelers right now?
I think that it's a great idea wherever you travel to go to the Department of State website and start there. They're going to have travel advisories for the different all the different places in the world, right? Wherever you're thinking about traveling. So that will give you an idea of what their opinion or their thoughts are, and they're obviously very intelligent people who are always monitoring these kinds of situations. They also have a travel program called STEP, and it's a way of registering where you're going to be. So if you are in Puerto Vallarta, for example, which is normally just fine, and everything goes sideways, and if you've registered with that, they're going to know that you're there. And so it makes it easier if they know how many Americans are there and where they are, what their plans are. It'll help them find you and communicate with you. So in general, though, I think that I love traveling to Mexico, but I think you want to be smart about it, right? You want to check that. You want to check the Department of State, see if there are any hot spots. A lot of the places, the resorts the resort towns, the towns that you can think of along the coast, are going to be generally pretty safe. But like we saw in Puerto Vallarta, things happened, right? And so you need to be vigilant when you're anywhere. Like in Cancun, there's the resort district, right? The hotel district, and I think that you can do a lot of stuff there, and you're kind of insulated a little bit, right? That doesn't mean you don't have to worry about things. Don't have to be aware of things, but it is a pretty safe environment to be in. And it's currently like a level 2, I think, which is use extra caution. But level 2 is also currently all the Bahamas and a lot of the places in Europe and things like that. So it's not considered more dangerous by the state Department of State than any of those places.
Have you had any clients impacted by like civil unrest or instability or anything like that? Like
not yet. No? Not yet. I do have some clients that are looking at Egypt. It's next year. So we'll see how the current situation plays out. Right now there's a lot of stuff going on, and so I think in general it's still fine to go places. It's a big world, and so even if there's things happening, I wouldn't particularly go to Iran right now, but or the neighboring countries right there. That I would definitely think twice about it. But in 9 months it could be just fine, right? And so and then also there's maybe this is the summer to travel in the U.S. And stay local. There's lots of things to do here, whether that's maybe you want to go on a Major League Baseball stadium tour, or go to New York and see some theater, or Chicago, or whatever you want to do. National parks, those kinds of things. There's lots of stuff out there.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be concerns, but I think that, like you said at the beginning, you just got to be situationally aware and not make yourself a target. And when I've traveled, regardless of how dangerous people say it is or think it is or whatever, they want that tourist dollar. There's so many industries that rely on that tourist dollar, and it really helps the community.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the more that you travel, the more you realize that people are people, right? Yeah. And then for the most part, the people you're going to encounter want the same thing you do. They want, a good life. They love their family and their friends, and and so yes, you want to be aware, but should you go to the point where you're never going to step outside of your house? No, because guess what? If you do that, you're going to die in your house, right? So.
You're right. Yeah, and I'll tell you, and sometimes those folks are afraid of their own shadow. So some of the resorts that I saw recently is, there's people standing with machine guns. Yep. They're even stopping like the tour companies picking up, people going on tours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Verify it. Like I saw a bunch of vans just stopped. Yeah. Prove it to me that you're picking this person up. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I do too. It can be a little disquieting. We're not necessarily used to seeing that.
Sure.
But it is being done for your safety. And I agree. I think it's a good thing.
Did you see anybody impacted by COVID? People that book travel, did some people get screwed over, or are there situations like that?
I don't know that they did a really good job about adjusting for that. I don't think nobody saw that coming. Especially early days, people, we had a Alaska cruise planned for that summer, and we all went home in March, and the cruise was in June. I was like, we'll be fine. We'll still go on it. Yeah. But it didn't happen. And so there was a lot of communication, and, they tried to figure out the best path forward. And I think for most people, they either got refunded or they got credit for a future cruise, additional credit, like 125% of what they spent, kind of a situation. And now pretty much travel is back to where it was before, and it's actually pre-COVID, it's above pre-COVID levels.
So we got a credit card that offers travel insurance, but what are your thoughts on travel insurance in general?
I think it's a really good idea. Insurance in general is something you hope you never have to use, whether it's car insurance or house insurance or our travel insurance. But especially if you're traveling outside of the United States, you have health insurance, medical insurance, those kinds of things that come with the travel insurance. In addition to you have your covered reasons for cancellation, which will get you a refund, whether that be illness, injury, death of a traveling member, those kinds of things. But a lot of companies are offering cancel for any reason, and so you could decide that you didn't want to go. Or, for example, let's say you were going to Cancun, but the Puerto Vallarta was having a big issue. Well, your trip in Cancun would not be canceled because of that. So they wouldn't pay you, but you could cancel it with the cancel for any reason, and you can get like 90% of what you spent back. And then in addition, it will allow you like medical transport. You know, if you break your leg in a different country, it's a much bigger deal than if you break your leg in Hawaii. You know, it also repatriates any remains if somebody were to pass away. Travel delays. Let's say your flight was delayed and you missed your river cruise to leaving the first port. So they would reimburse you for that, and they would help you get to the next port, kind of a thing. So I think it's, especially if it's a big ticket item, you know, if you're spending several $1,000s on something, I think it's worth having that peace of mind.
Are you using, when you travel and check luggage, are you using like air tags? Yeah, great. How many?
I do. I put one in each.
Got it.
We lost some luggage, and so after that, I just bought some and I throw them in there, and I put them in our backpacks also, so that so our luggage in our backpacks, and then we're kind of covered. Even though the backpacks are generally on the plane with us, I still like to have it.
Awesome.
So yeah.
And then what happened with the lost luggage? Did you let the airline know, hey, it's over here? Or what?
Well, this was before I smartened up and got air tags, so we had to wait, and it was in Orlando, so it wasn't too bad. But I had to go back to the airport and get my luggage a couple days after we had been at Disney World for a couple days already, and we were just about out of clothes, and so. But that if you do check your luggage, you want to make sure that you have medication and things that you need in your carry-on. So you don't want to check that.
Are there any must carry safety items that you bring or you recommend?
I think that there's a couple of things. I think you can consider having a little first aid kit, just nothing too fancy, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing extreme travel, you want to have some more stuff. You might want to have like a tourniquet or something like that. But if you're just on a family trip, you might want to have bandages, ace bandages, some Tylenol, those kinds of things, ice pack maybe. I think those are great. I think you can get, especially maybe if you're traveling alone or something like that, you might want to pop a doorstop in your luggage so that you can put that behind your door and it makes it difficult to open. A personal alarm, you can, that make noise, you can trigger it and make noise, and hopefully that will help. And like even like a flashlight, a little flashlight or something like that, in case you end up, in a situation where maybe it's Hawaii and they're having all that rain and they lose power, and so you have a little flashlight and maybe an extra charger for your phone in case you lose power. Those kinds of things that will help you be a little safer.
Whether it's you or any of your colleagues, are there any crazy stories involving arrests, lost passports, medical emergencies, things like that?
I have been fortunate enough to not have any kind of major incident that has resulted in issues like that. But, you hear about people that end up getting arrested because they don't understand the local laws, right? Whether it's, marijuana for personal use or something like that other countries are very strict on, and things like that. So that is an important thing to make sure you always understand the local laws and don't violate them, because you definitely don't want to end up in jail on your vacation.
What should somebody do if they lose their passport?
Well, if they lose their passport, they're going to need to contact the embassy, the State Department. They can reach out to me and I can help facilitate those calls.
Now, we had that stuff in Mexico that we spoke about. Are you familiar with any, I don't know, maybe companies or services that will help somebody get out of those types of places? Or
well, in general, what happens is that they'll issue a warning for U.S. citizens to leave the area, the State Department will. Yeah. And so if you are somewhere and they do that, I highly advise you to go as quickly as possible. Because once the commercial transportation shuts down, it becomes much more difficult. The State Department will make every effort to get citizens out of that kind of situation, but you will have to pay for it, most likely. You will, when you get on the plane, you'll get a paper and it says, I will reimburse the United States for the costs of this. And so obviously your safety is the most important thing at that point, but don't delay. If things are going bad, I mean, don't put yourself in danger trying to get out either, but if you can safely get to an airport and get out, I would highly advise it.
Now, you handle the gamut from airlines to hotels to cruises to all-inclusive. Is there anything that you do for like high-end travelers that people may not know about?
Well, the luxury travel market is a little bit different. It becomes more personalized experience. It's going to be oftentimes they're more familiar with the clients already. People are going back to the same kinds of things. So it's just there's like private terminals at airports, things like that help make the travel a little smoother if you can afford to do that and want to do that. Some people like to splurge, and maybe it's a milestone anniversary or birthday or something like that, and so they want to go first class all the way. And so we definitely have the ability to do that, whether it's expedition cruising or even like I can get people private yachts with cruise and and things like that. So
I'd like to go first class, but can I put the rest of the family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll do that. I've seen some advertisements for, I don't know if it's like a membership or something like that, but essentially it's like a private jet and you get these credits or something like that.
Yeah.
I think NetJets is one, or is something very similar. But how legit are some of those ones where they say, hey, we need people on the plane,
right,
pay whatever. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I haven't flown that, but yes, I am aware of those kinds of situations, and I think that for the most part they're just fine. You want it to be a reputable company, right? You don't want to put your money down and go to the airport only to find out that the company went under, and because it's a niche kind of market, and so they do a lot of those from Orange County to Vegas or whatever, where or down to Cabo or something like that, where it's it's a private jet, but it's not really a private jet. You might be on there with another family or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to check that out. I don't know if
Yeah.
Or just get my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And for the audience, we're going to do a PDF that has all the tips from us and from Charlie. And so we're going to make that available to the audience. How do people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you? All of it.
Yeah, well, they can look me up on my website, which is cruiseplannersofoc.com.
Got it.
And they can call me. All things travel, everything. The names, it's Cruise Planners, but we handle everything, like you said, from A to Z and everything in between. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much. This is very enlightening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.